welcome to 2 on OSU, episode 3, right here in this Oklahoma State-focused podcast. Ben, the season's rolling right along, so are we. The Cowboys are about to go to their first road game of the year, and we are too, in the airport right now, about to take off, so we'll have coverage from the field out there in Tempe for Sellout Crowd. But Ben, there's a lot to get into. What are your bird's eye view takeaways of this game and what the Cowboys need to do to win?
I'm really excited, Sam, to just see how OSU looks against a Power 5 team. Did this 3-quarterback system, it worked well enough. It was passable last week against Central Arkansas. But what's it look like against Arizona State? Against a Power 5 team on the road at night. It's going to be hot. The conditions aren't going to be easy. So I think it is going to be the Cowboys' first true test of the season. And hopefully it'll illuminate a lot of what we see.
I joked a little earlier, I think the person with the hardest job in the country right now is Kenny Dillingham, the Sun Devils' first-year head coach. I think he's only 33 or something, really young guy. But how do you prepare for Oklahoma State if you're Kenny Dillingham right now? The Cowboys could play one guy, could play two guys, could play three guys out there at quarterback. Defensively, the Cowboys didn't show a whole lot against Central Arkansas. The scheme was kept pretty vanilla, and the only film you have is from on Brian Nardo is grainy and who knows where it's posted. So it's not like he's coming from a place that had a ton of exposure. So I think that this could be a mystery for a variety of reasons. And this game, I could see both teams winning. I have a feeling it'll just be unpredictable. One of those Pac-12 after dark kind of games that maybe leaving forever, which is sad. But Oklahoma State could get one last run at one of those crazy games.
Yeah, you're right. I don't think Gannon University had many games on ESPN. No. Not that I saw, at least. And I think with this game in particular, Sam, I talked to Michelle Gardner, who covers Arizona State for AZ Central, the big newspaper out there, Sam. And Michelle told me for Arizona State to win this game, the offensive line is going to have to improve. Which, the same could be said probably for the Cowboys. So that'll be an interesting battle to see in the trenches. Injuries are just as problematic over there in Arizona as they are for the Cowboys in Stillwater. So I think the trenches is a place to watch. But I'm also looking at the Sun Devils quarterback, Jaden Rashada. Sam, it's interesting. With these young quarterbacks, Rashada's a freshman, I believe, and a super highly touted recruit. And with these young players, you get some inconsistency. Rashada was awesome before the break when the Sun Devils were taking care of business. Sam, but at around halftime, a dust storm rolled into Tempe. You might have seen it. It made headlines. And Michelle told me that really kind of changed Arizona State, the way they played. So apparently Coach Dillingham at halftime had said, we had players doing homework at halftime.
How about that?
That's just a bizarre scene to think of. And it affected the Sun Devils. They only scored 3 points in the second half. Southern Utah scored 14 points and made it a close game. The Sun Devils only won by 3. So Thursday kickoff last week, it was a weird week with the dust storm. I don't think we're going to see that again. So I don't know if the Sun Devils have put everything on the table, but I'm looking at Jaden Rashada in particular to see how if we get the first half or if we get the second half of it.
Right. However much Oklahoma State fans were sweating a game against an FBS opponent, Arizona State fans were sweating more. That game was tight down the stretch. And Arizona State, not a team with super lofty expectations in the Pac-12 either. But both these teams maybe a little similar. On the offensive line front, Ben, the Cowboys, like you said, both teams will be hoping for health and good blocking. Here's a quote from Gundy that came in his midweek press conference that I thought was very poignant. He said, "We went to a couple different things late in the game, and we had some space where guys were able to get out and make plays. That has to start in the first quarter. It's going to be difficult as the season goes on if we're rushing for 3 yards a carry, because then we can become one-dimensional. We have to continue to work at that." So I think Gundy is quite right. Are the Cowboys going to be the rushing team that was struggling to get juice against Central Arkansas for 3 quarters? Or are they going to be the team in the fourth quarter where Ollie Gordon was ripping off chunks. Elijah Collins had a long touchdown run, and I think that's what the Cowboys need to have a key when you don't have a locked in quarterback one right now. That can take a huge burden off those quarterbacks and maybe help decide the starter is how the offense looks good with the solid running game.
Sam, Mike Gundy shared with us on Monday, Preston Wilson will be traveling with the team. He didn't go into detail if that means Preston Wilson, the Cowboy offensive lineman who missed the opener for non-football reasons.
Yeah.
We don't know if he'll be necessarily playing, but he will be there in Arizona, as Mike Gundy shared with us Monday. And I think that's going to be a factor. The offensive line, running game. How many times, Sam, did we hear Mike Gundy say that last year? The running game is kind of the make or break thing with this team. And to hear him immediately say that, I think those were his first words in the post-game press conference, is the running game needs to be better.
Right.
I don't know if he said it exactly like that, but the point was made. Is that alarming, Sam, that the first point he makes is, oh no, we're back in this same thing we heard all about last year?
Yeah, it felt like, oh, this same story. And it was a problem for the Cowboys last year, and it just shines more when you don't have a quarterback that can tuck it and run it himself in Spencer Sanders, but it shines more when you're working through which quarterback to even start, and all three of them would greatly benefit from a strong rushing attack. So yeah, but be watching the right side of that offensive line. Preston Wilson, of course, the right guard, and then right tackle Jake Springfield. He went out with injury against Central Arkansas too. So it didn't sound season ending or anything, but I'll be watching the right side of the Cowboy offensive line. And the other key, Ben, that we talked about, the Cowboys need to get better at is tackling. OSU missed 16 tackles against Arizona State. That's according to Pro Football Focus. And Pro Football Focus also had another alarming stat, Ben. Get this. If you take every single Big 12 player who played in week one, out of the top 5 missed tacklers, the guys who missed the most tackles, the Cowboys had 3 of those spots. So uh, that was problematic. 3 Cowboys had 3 missed tackles. And it was from Kendall Daniels was one of the guys, one of Oklahoma State's best players. It's Nick Martin was a guy who the Cowboys need to play big at middle linebacker, and he had 3 of those missed tackles. So that's a cause for concern too, I think, for Oklahoma State. Am I wrong in that?
No, if things stay like they did on that first drive for Central Arkansas, when those Bears were just bouncing off of guys and getting to the second level, there's not much room for error out in Tempe. So that's certainly something that needs to change, and especially without linebacker Justin Wright. Sam, you wrote about it this week. Wright, after the game, announced he had feared for a season-ending injury, and he'll see everyone week 5. And we got a little bit of clarity on that, but that's just another thing that it just elevates the importance of the linebackers tackling. You mentioned Nick Martin as one of the guys who really needs to take care of that problem.
That's right. Okay, let's wrap it up, Ben, and I'll put you on the spot because we haven't talked about this, but I'll ask you to venture out a little prediction, and I'll set the stage for it. This is not the same Arizona State team that came into Stillwater last year, and the Cowboys won that game 34-17. But like we talked about, new head coach, new quarterback. Both these teams are quite new, and it'll be a new matchup. Ben, first off, does the Tempe atmosphere how much does that change the needle for you? How big is that home field advantage, and where do you have this game finishing out?
Sam, I think the bigger advantage in Tempe is going to be the weather at 107 at kick rather than any sort of raucous home atmosphere. Michelle Gardner told me, look, Tempe's it's not a college town. It's just a completely different culture from the Manhattan, Kansases and the Stillwater, Oklahomas. So I think the weather kicking off, like I said, at 107. I saw somewhere that might be one of the hottest games on record in Arizona, and that's just because they don't let them play in the middle of the day. So I think that could be a factor. I see the Cowboys winning. I see the offense being improved. I'll take them 31 to 24. I think the Cowboys win by a score.
Okay. I think I think that has the Cowboys covering the spread too. I think it's at 3.5 or something. I thought that was about right. Maybe the Cowboys by a field goal, but really, I almost it's bad to say this, but I feel like I'm almost treating this as week 1. I don't think we learned a whole lot from the Cowboys against Central Arkansas. So this to me feels like it will still be a breath of fresh air where maybe we're leaving Tempe with more answers, but maybe questions are unveiled too. But there's still so much that Oklahoma State hasn't shown yet in the playbook, and so much that Oklahoma State has undecided that's just hanging out there. So it'll be interesting. But late kick, I think the game's on Fox Sports 1, and Ben and I will be there in person updating everyone on Twitter. I don't know how much content we'll put out post-game or save for Sunday just because that game will get over quite late and press conferences and all that. It'll be a late one. But that's all for 2 on OSU. I'm Sam Hutchens, joined by Ben Hutchens today and all season. Thanks for tuning along, and we'll keep you updated.